All right. I am excited to be here with a wonderful couple, people I've known for many, many years, Pat and Annette Carter. Annette has been my kids' art teacher and my own art teacher for many years and has really affected people. And Pat is just probably the nicest man a person could ever meet. So
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being here. So would you please introduce yourselves and share about yourselves, where you're from, how you met, a little bit about your background, your kids.
Okay, well, we met at Rick's College when it was Rick's, and President Irene was the president at the time. He was driving from New Jersey to, actually his brother came to Rexburg quite by accident. The car broke down.
So this is Pat?
Yeah, Pat's brother.
Yes.
And his brother Joe, his car broke down, and they go, oh, well, they were on their way to California, but decided to stay in Rexburg and work. So that he can get a job in construction anywhere. So he decided to stay.
So he stopped, and I lived in the top of a house. We shared a porch with each other. And
so we lived
on one side, and her roommates lived on the other side.
Just in the summer, and they always loved the West, so he decided to live there in Rexburg. And anyway, but next to 6 college girls, and so he'd been to an all-boys prep school in New Jersey, so he wasn't around girls too much. So this was a new thing. But he didn't realize we weren't gonna really, date him that much because, we were, my roommate was going on a mission, so she decided to practice on him. But he was a golden convert because he just knew, and he didn't do it for me. I made sure, he didn't do it for me, but he knew right away, this is the kind of lifestyle he'd always been looking for and everything. So my cousin baptized him in the Snake River. And when he came out of the river, he just glowed with the Spirit, and it was great. And then everybody was looking at us, and I realized I can like him now. So that's when we started dating. And it was about a year and a half after that we got married in the Idaho Falls Temple.
Wow.
1975. So next year will be our 50th anniversary. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, that is amazing. So Pat, you grew up Catholic, I think, right?
Yes, I did grow up in a Catholic religion, and I'm originally from the Garden State of New Jersey. Beautiful area I grew up in. Some parts of the state, but most of the state's really beautiful. And just a small rural area we lived in. We're surrounded by farms and dairies, which are all homes now.
His dad's a veterinarian. That's what he is now.
Yeah, so I'm a veterinarian by profession.
And his brother and his nephew are all vets too. He grew up taking care of animals right in the clinic there since he was 9 years old. So,
but when I went to Rexburg, like I said, her roommate was actually going on a mission where I grew up at in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. She was going on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yes, she was going
to the Eastern States. Yeah, it was called Eastern States.
Well, it's New York City mission, New Jersey mission.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So she started asking me questions if I believe in God. I says, of course. And I says, well, do you believe in the Trinity? Or I says, or do you believe in 3 separate beings? I says, it makes more sense to be 3 separate beings: God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost. And she said to me, well, you should learn about our religion, my religion then, because that's what we believe, 3 separate beings. I said, it's only made sense to me my whole life. I thought about it when I took lessons, catechism after school. They would tell about God and what he was like, and it was very confusing.
But they don't believe that. They believe that just one entity.
It's all in one, so it's very, very confusing. Mm-hmm. So I got a wonderful background, wonderful background in religion and about Christ and about God, and but it was more of a fearful God rather than a loving God. You feared him, yeah, which was kind of sad. And uh, so when I heard it was a loving God, I was just so relieved by that. It just gave me great comfort to be able to know that. Um, when I was about 13 or 14, I was kind of an annoying teenager because I always had questions. I still do, but I asked the priest, where did I come from before I was born? And he said, well, I know your parents, that you came from there. I says, no, before I was born, where did I come from? And he says, we really don't know that. I says, you're the priest. You should know. You know all the stuff. And he didn't kind of like that. But anyway.
You're a little encouraged.
Yeah, so he told me the beauty is the mystery of it.
Yeah.
Which confused me big time. And so I says, that means you don't know. So he's getting kind of annoyed with me. And,
but then when I told him about the pre-existence and all that, he just was, wow.
That was the clincher when I found out where I came from.
Before we were born.
But I lived with Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. And I was able to have eternal parents before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's one of our unique beliefs,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That our spirits are eternal, and that
we've always existed.
We've existed, and that we chose to be born on this earth to be tried and tested, and that Jesus Christ made it possible to overcome sin and death, and ultimately to live forever in our family units. That's a unique LDS theology that not all Christians understand to be the same way, but it is part of our belief. And I know I've heard you many times speak to that as being comforting, regarding the experiences that you've had. And so that's where I'd like to go to. I know both of you have had experiences with loss, with losing someone, and we'll get there. But I want to take a minute because I think it speaks so much to your overall experience. When you started out in 1975, how did you envision your family was going to be?
Yeah, and somebody asked that when you're 17, did you think your life would turn out the way it did? And this was a especially for women thing, and nobody answered yes. Except I asked that in, you remember, I asked that in Relief Society, and Jackie Halverson raised her hand, oh yeah. But she didn't plan on her health issues. So everybody has some, everybody has to be tried in this life. And yeah, but I perceived that, if you live righteous, you can righteous your way through it. That if you righteous enough that you won't have to have
step B to step C, and
you won't have to. You'll be spared the trials. But that is not true, and it is especially not true for somebody that was perfect like Christ. I mean, he went through the ultimate trial, and so, yeah, how can we expect to be better than him and be denied those trials that will help us to grow and become more like him?
That is a really, really good point. So tell me about your family.
So, yeah, we had 3 sons, bing, 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 in veterinary school. And then we had a daughter in Trenton, New Jersey. So,
and she was a big surprise because
the
ultrasound, they said it was going to be a boy.
Oh, no, really?
So,
oh, yeah.
I had a human embryology book. Just how big of a science nerd I am. I got it out and read it and says, I don't think they can tell for sure because it's right. I had scientific terms I was saying, which I won't say online. But anyway, I says, I don't think so. I just had that feeling
Well,
it wasn't going to happen.
they just started ultrasounds.
Yeah, ultrasounds
This was back in 1985. That was the only child I had an ultrasound. And the doctor and the technician both said, no, it's a boy.
So I told her, I says, let's just don't wallpaper or do anything. Because I just had a different feeling.
And she was born a few minutes before Father's Day. Oh. And so on the way home, he heard the song in his car, Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh,
and that's been her theme song.
We've heard it off and on in the most random places.
Yeah. So she, but that was her song. And her movie is Back to the Future, because that was 1985. Yeah,
we put a little teddy bear with her in her vest, and
I've got the teddy, in the
cradle,
and it had a blue ribbon.
She kept it all through her life, even after marriage, and we did get it back from her husband.
Yeah, so it had I put a blue ribbon on it, and as soon as she was in that little bassinet in the hospital, I ripped that ribbon off, and I told her, you were born with Teddy. Teddy's with you. And I'm actually going to do a book that is going to be called Teddy and Me, or Mindy and Me. Mindy and Me.
From Teddy's perspective.
Teddy's perspective.
Of growing up with Mindy.
Do growing up. And go get Teddy. He's going to get Teddy. I knew what he was doing. And so a little book about her. And we did make one book with pictures in it. My friend did, but I want to elaborate the story about how they were best friends for 31 years together.
And so Mindy, your baby, at 31, she passed.
No, I didn't. Oh, I did move it. Okay. I moved it. Anyway, it's all just raggedy. She loved it. She'd suck her thumb and rub on it. And just everything with Teddy. It's just
Teddy will be with us in spirit.
Practically falling apart. But Teddy is so precious to us. And that's the only thing we got back from her. Yeah, she was a week and a half before she turned 31. She was killed in a car accident. So in 2016. And it was a big shock. But what did you want to ask us about that?
I did want to ask you about that. How did you manage it? Can you even remember those early days and weeks and months after she passed away? What some of your thoughts and feelings and experiences were?
It was the oddest thing when I got the phone call. The first response is, "No way." Let's talk to her husband. "No way, you're kidding." He says, "No, I got to go because I just found out." And he's really, of course, very, very shooken up. And I told Annette, and because we're together when we got the phone call that no parent wants to get, and I just walked away and thought for a minute. I said, "Why, God? Why'd you take her?" So I was mad. I absolutely was mad. And that was my only mad part of grief. It lasted 1 minute. I'm absolutely serious. And I felt great comfort and peace all of a sudden. And then the thought came to me, on the priesthood holder in the family, the patriarch of the family, I need to be strong for my children because I need to call them one by one and tell them what happened.
Yeah, she was
so that's the initial part. And then her home, of course, word got out, and her home started to be filled with people, one being one of our friends that had lost a child that was like 29 years old, one that lost a child.
Millers.
At, just a few months
old,
were I believe.
Home teachers at the time, Shannon and Mike Miller, and they came right away.
So they came right over, and then other family members came, and good friends Nathan Brown and Sean Brown, they were right on the spot. And I kind of just wandered off in the background, and somebody said, I said to him, "You're supposed to outlive your kids. What's this?"
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of in a state of shock because there's people coming, and I was trying to process stuff, and then getting on the phone and telling the kids it, and trying to stay as calm as I could possibly be. And I held it together quite well. At least I think I did.
Yeah, this article that
was a shock for sure.
That I've kept.
First few days, you were just in an absolute haze. And when we went out in public, I was wondering, why are people smiling and laughing?
Yeah.
I am feeling terrible. Am I ever going to smile again? Or why are they smiling?
Yeah, you think the world should stop when you have that. But
yeah, that's
this
true.
article,
I told my son that Heavenly Father had taken her home. He needed her to be with him. That's what I told my kids. I said, it's a hard thing we're going to go through, but we'll all get through it.
This is an old article by Elder Richard L. Evans that I've kept over the years. And he talks about the first stage of shock, and a bereaved individual goes through the daily routine like a robot, taking care of children, cleaning, working, eating, sleeping, and preparing meals, but doing it all in a daze. It may take hours, days, months, and eventually the numbness wears off and suffering sets in. So the next stage is suffering and anger. But that first stage of shock, it's like, the one thing that did comfort us is when we went to church, and they talked about this scripture. And so it's always been my favorite scripture. It's D&C 84:88. And whoso receiveth you, there I will be also. For I will go before your face. I will be on your right hand and on your left. And my spirit shall be in your hearts, and mine angels round about you to bear you up. And that was really true. We could feel that because we had to plan a funeral. We had to plan and write an obituary, and we had to plan a viewing of a display of her life. And I had to go through 6 bins. I'd saved everything from her, and just her little girl's dresses, everything about her life. And so I had to go through 6 bins. I only broke down once. So I know angels were helping me.
She was phenomenal. With that. I couldn't believe it.
And I had to, we had to do it in 3 days because she died on the 25th. We didn't hear about it until the 25th.
The next morning.
And then, so she actually was only 3 days away from Memorial Day. And Memorial Day has always been special for me because as a child, I used to go and put flowers on my brother's grave. Now, my brother died when I was 6. And so that has always been a special day. And so I wanted it to be on Memorial Day. And a lot of people have that day off, so it was just perfect. So we had our family fly in, everything, do that. And it all worked out really well. I only regret that I didn't say one thing in her obituary, but you're on brain overload. And that was that she was the youngest member of the Spokane Symphony Choir. I wanted to add that. She had a beautiful voice. She used to sing every day. And she, she sang in church. She played the piano beautifully. And she, had those 2 musical talents that I always wanted her to develop, that I never got to take lessons as a child, but she got to do that. I was an artist, an art teacher, because pencil was cheap, But yeah, you're in a daze. I had just had surgery like a few weeks before. And so I was recovering from surgery, and really it wasn't the surgery though, but I actually for 6 months had physical pain and mental pain. And so after 6 months, I told God, I just can't take it anymore. I need you to take one away. And so he took the physical pain away. So the first year, and that was her funeral program, and it has her obituary on the back. But her first year of grieving, everybody's very wonderful and kind and all that. And but the second year, they expect you to get over it. Mm-hmm. And everybody has their own timetable for grief. And so
the cycles repeat sometimes.
Yeah.
And we noticed when she was struggling, I was strong.
Yeah.
And so it kind of went back and forth. It was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. I was strong when he was struggling. It was a nice
balance. It's like the Lord was blessing us to help each other to get through. We pulled together.
We felt bad for her husband.
We pulled together because you make a choice. You either pull together or you pull apart. So many people divorce and just don't handle it.
Yep, we know.
But we chose to draw closer, and it brought us closer than ever since.
Yeah, we know a couple. Really? We did Airbnb, and we got to know this one couple, and they had lost a baby girl, and to buffer, you do things to buffer, so you don't have to think about it. And so the husband was drinking a lot, and so they eventually got divorced because of that. But yeah, and
so that you said though, Pat, you said that it was a choice. Do you think it's? I mean, is it literally a choice that you make that this is not going to separate you? Because you're right, a lot of couples do suffer.
Make an absolute choice. We needed each other.
We felt bad for her husband.
We felt so bad for her husband because we could grieve together, but he was by himself. The poor guy. I felt so bad for him.
And he
was a good man.
He loved her very much.
He was very, very good to our daughter.
But he didn't believe in God, that there was a God. And so the ashes, and they'd agreed, I guess, earlier that they would be cremated. So the ashes were just, that was all that he got, was the ashes, and that nothing else. And so we totally know that that's not true. And we know that she is, and we've had confirmation that she is happy. And my mother had died a month before that of Alzheimer's. And I knew absolutely that my mother was just there with her hands out and welcoming her grandmother into heaven. And I know that she's with all of the ancestors that are teaching her about the gospel so that she can come back. And she has. It's been 8 years. So I know that she has come back. We got a confirmation on that too, that she's all in again.
And what do you mean by that?
She got kind of swayed into his atheism, and she, fell away from the teachings that she had been brought up with, that we had taught her. And so it took 6 years, but I got a confirmation in the Rome temple that she is all in again, that the ancestors have taught her, and that she's all in. But by all in, I mean that she is back in the faith. Right. And she's totally strong again. And, she had some other issues. She had some mental issues and other things that were struggling with. And so we were thinking that God actually saved her. He didn't take her from us. He saved her for us, and that she is completely whole and happy. We know that for sure. We've got confirmation from her that she is very, very happy.
Yes, she needed to be with loved ones on the other side of the veil, which we wholeheartedly believe 100%. And she's with them, and I've had experiences where I have felt from the other side confirmations that we're taking good care of her.
Yeah.
Says, it's all right. We're taking good care of her. We love her. It's such a nice feeling to have that. It gives me a huge feeling of peace to be able to know that.
Yeah. And my best friend that taught me watercolor, and we were friends for 44 years, actually. And we I knew she was going to die, and she knew, and she had cancer. And I've told this to a few people that I knew were going to die. I've asked them to please give her a hug. But with my friend, I said, I want you to send me a sign too, that you're with her. And I did. I got that sign from her and both of them one day. And that was just really amazing.
Was it music?
It was music. And a lot of times I get signed through music because we'll hear girls just want to have fun right when I need it and when you need it. And I'll go, oh, I love you, Mindy. I love you, baby. But this one was the songs from her funeral, and they came right one after the other. And wow. I knew this is when I was really grieving for my friend. And she just died in March. So I'm still grieving. That first year is really hard. But yeah, so she's with her and she's taking care of her and everything. But yeah, and then it talks about the second stage is suffering and anger. You do go through an anger stage. You're suffering. It's horrible. And then the third stage is acceptance. And we just appreciate anything that anybody can do or say that will, you want to talk about your loved one. That's another thing. You just want to talk right after they've died. You really want to just have somebody listen and say something.
Or just a confirmation. We're thinking of you.
Do something or say something. I can't stress that enough. Yeah, do something or say something just to know that if you can't think of anything, just give them a hug, because that means so much. Right. Anything that you can do. But if you don't say anything, that's worse. That's way worse.
Right. Well, and that's something I've noticed that you both have been really good about. Pat several times has come and just given me a hug or, told me he was thinking about me after Steve passed away. It meant a lot to me.
Or that we're praying for you.
Things. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
One experience I had after church, just shortly afterward, was can't remember her first name, Sister Allred, one of the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she just came up to me with the most loving look to her face and says, "I'm so sorry," and she gave me a big hug, and I said, "Thank you. That's what I needed." Yeah. That's exactly what I needed right now.
Yeah.
And that's so simple. It didn't require anything but for her to just approach you.
Yeah, you don't need to send flowers or food or any of that stuff. I mean, that's nice too. I thought one of the greatest thing our neighbors did
was tell grieving stories.
Our neighbor across the street, they brought over paper plates. And because they knew we were going to have a lot of people come, paper plates, toilet paper, tissues, because we'll be crying. It was really practical things. And then they provided beds for our family, and that was really good.
That's right. Neighbors provided beds across the street.
The one thing not to say, and my sister did that, and my niece, her daughter, had to say, "Mom, don't do that. Don't ever say, well, at least." Right. Well, at least she didn't go like this. Well, at least she had this going, and you don't ever say that, because nothing is.
Why do you think that's so hurtful?
Because there's nothing that you can look on the good, bright side to. No.
Especially at the beginning.
At least she didn't suffer or whatever. She didn't have a long illness or whatever. No, you don't say that. Just leave that totally out of your conversation, because there's nothing you can say that will make it better or make her come back. There's nothing.
Right.
But one of the things that the two books, do you want me to talk about the books?
Sure. Yeah.
These two books have been really, really helpful to me. One of them is called When People Grieve. It's not an LDS book, and that's okay. After she died, I wanted to know everything. I'd already been interested in near-death experiences, so I got even more interested in after. I want to know, what is she doing? What's happening? Where is she? Everything. And so this one by Paula D'Arcy. This is When People Grieve. And that was a good book, and not church book, but that's okay. I read everything. In fact, I cleaned out the whole
She had about 30 books.
grieving section of the stores.
And these were all near-death experiences. That's what these
just
were.
people that had, something. And so my Pat and my son, my oldest son, they were kind of worried about me. But my friend, she says, Annette, you do whatever you need to do. You just do it. And this one was, and this one wasn't after Mindy died, but it was after, when we have another son that has severe mental illness, and he's been in and out of mental hospitals for over 25 years. And you grieve the person that they should have been, that they could have been. And so this was after a last episode that he had where we had to put him in the hospital. And I was just done. I was just absolutely done after that, because I had to be the one to call the police and get him in the hospital. And it was hard. It was really hard. So I was like, okay, why are we having this? Especially after Mindy died. Isn't that enough trial that we have to go through? Right. It should be, we should only get one major trial, right? No. And Christ didn't get that. A lot of people have not gotten that in the scriptures, the prophets and all that. So anyway, but I was just totally done. And so this book it's a church book by Emily Ann Adams. It's her first book, actually, Exploring Growth Through Grief. And this is my lender book. The other one I've marked up so much, but I remember what it says. And I started reading this and I couldn't put it down. She was pregnant with twin boys. And actually, one of them died giving all the nutrients to the other baby in the womb. And so she had to deliver a live baby boy and a dead one. Oh. And it was so hard for her. Every time she looked at this live baby, she would think this other child should be with him and doing all these things. Well, it was so hard on her. And then one day she had a lady come to her house, and she knew this lady had gone through many, many trials. And she said, I'm just going to hug you. And you just feel what you need to feel. You just go ahead and do it. And so she realized that, other people have trials too. And she started interviewing all these women in her ward. And there's 50 different women that she interviewed and put little blurbs in the book of what.
Maybe we can get her on the podcast.
Well, she's fabulous. And she is, oh man, it was the best book that I've ever read, but the one thing there's two things. I was telling my friend Linda actually today about it. And I said, she has 3 things that you go through. First, you're victim. And that's where it's like a cut, like somebody stabbed you or something, and you have this open wound and you're just in pain and you just can't do anything. And it's just, you can't think of other people's problems or what you need to do. Your mind is grief ridden. And so the second stage where it talks about is where you're a survivor, and you can pull back a little bit and you can see where God has helped you get through that stage, or has helped you to do the things that you need to do. And you can see God's hand in what happened. Right. And then the third stage is where you are a contributor. And that is where you can help somebody else that is going through the same thing. So over the years, 8 years or even more, and every time Dallin, our son, gets sick, we have to get that wound open again. And she said that. She said, you don't just go through once, you go through it over and over and over until you die, basically, because you're going to still have trials and things come up. But I think with Mindy's death, we've just gone through it once. And I really feel like we've been able to be the contributor and helping other people that have lost their children, or if they have a child that has mental illness, and we've been able to help them through that. So those are the 3 stages, very.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of helping other people. In my profession as veterinarian, when I walk into a room, I'll take the chart in with me and look at the animal's name. And I tell me about your cat's name. Okay. So I go into the exam room and I look at the name Juniper. I haven't heard the name Juniper. He says, well, here's my daughter's cat. He says, oh, I've heard the story before. Daughter goes to college, leaves, and the parents get the cat. Says, yep. And he says, no, she died in a car accident.
Oh.
And I looked at him and says, my daughter died in a car accident also. And within 2 minutes, we were in each other's arms and we just held each other. Mm-hmm. And we had never met before. That was the first time he'd ever been in. And we talked about what we believed and talked about his family and my family. And they had 6 children total. And when their daughter died, of course, it was down to 5. And I joked with him. I says, well, you must be there's a joke in our church. It's either Mormon or Catholic if you had that many kids. He says, oh, I'm Catholic. I says, well, I used to be, but now I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so we just basically identify with each other. Yeah. And then we just spoke briefly.
And I love that. I love that visual in my mind of seeing 2 men embrace each other.
Yeah.
It was
because how needed is that?
Yeah, we helped each other. So I went through that trial. We went through the trial. We have helped so many people that we know of or that we're not aware of that we know of. Those people that we've had experiences, they can tell other people, we heard random, and it's pretty remarkable in that way. We had another experience after she had died from the Oregon coast. We went up and it was just raining all get out. And so we pulled it aside and there was one shop that was open. And so we went in, soaking wet. There's just a couple that owned the place. And somehow we got on a topic. I don't know how it was.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden,
child.
We were talking about our child that died, or there's one that I can't remember
and
what.
They had one too.
But they had one that died. Was it a car accident too?
I don't remember.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And so we had the same thing. So we sat there, only people that were in the place. And it was like it was meant to be because we talked about our similar beliefs in a God. And, that it's almost like we just comforted and reassured each other that, we're going to see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's a very unifying experience, isn't it? When you can come from different walks of life, you can have different backgrounds, different beliefs, different political views, but you can be very united in the experience of grief with another person.
One of my art moms, she had a son that had bipolar, and he died by suicide and years ago. And I had given her a book, and books are very therapeutic to me. So I'd given her this book. And when Mindy died, she brought the book back and said, here's the book. Welcome to the club that nobody wants to be in. Because there's not a name for a mother that's lost a child. I mean, there's Gold Star moms.
Right.
That they've lost their child in the military, and there's widows and widowers and things like that. But orphans, yeah, there's no name for a parent that's lost a child because it's not supposed to be that way. You're not supposed to.
That's really interesting.
When one time I wanted to go visit my pioneer ancestor, Patty Sessions, who I've always admired and heard about all my life. She was a Mormon, very well-known Mormon midwife that delivered babies across the plains. And she ended up well, they had 8 children originally, and 5 of those children died in their youth before they grew up. And then she even had one that died on the plains, age 12. And so out of 8 children, she only had 3 living children. And actually the one that, Patty lived to be 97. And so even her daughter that I come through, Sylvia, died at in her 60s. And so she outlived 6 of her 8 children. So I went to her cemetery in Bountiful, Utah, which actually was originally called Sessionsville after their family. And I went to and they've got like a monument in the cemetery. And I'm having a pity party because I have to, go home and put our son in the hospital, and I've lost my only daughter, and I'm having a really big pity party. And so I went and I looked at this cemetery, this headstone that's really big to honor her. And on the back of it, there's her 6 children. And I know she lost 6 out of 8 before she died. And I thought, you know what? I'm from pioneer stock. I can do this. If Patty can lose 6, I can lose 1. I can do it. And because I was at the point where I just didn't want to live anymore. I've never been at that point before, but I just thought I could just go home, because I knew I had to go home and put him in the hospital, and I just didn't want to do it. And I thought I can just drive over a cliff and it'll, be okay. But because I hate pain, I won't do that to myself. Because I know that I shouldn't do it anyway, and I love life. And so I did it. I did what I had to do, and then I had the pity party after. But anyway, what I'm saying is that I have pioneer stock. I hugged that headstone, that cemetery, that monument. I just hugged it, and I said, okay, you can help me. Your example is helping me get through this, And I read somewhere where it takes about 5 years to really become happy again. I mean, you can grieve for a year or 2 or whatever, and people have their own timeline, of course, but to be really, truly happy again, it takes about 5 years. And that's what it took for us. And I can't wait to wake up in the morning. I am so excited to live my life. I've got things planned. I have books to write. I have all these wonderful ideas. I've got paintings to paint because I'm an art teacher and I love to paint. And I've got places to travel to. And he's excited because his retirement's coming up, and we're going to do things, and we're going to work also in the temple. And we just, I think we're the happiest that we have ever been. And nobody can say, well, how did you get that way? It was one day. It's the miracle of the atonement, because the atonement, the power of the atonement will just wipe that out. It will just wipe that grief away. And all of a sudden, you're that wound, you will always have the scar. You will always have the scar, like Christ had the scar of the nails in his hands. That will always be there. But it is healed over, and you are whole again. And I just can't stress how the power and the miracle of the atonement has changed our lives, because we were addiction recovery missionaries when our daughter died. And 2 months before we ended our mission, she died. And what happens when you're addiction recovery missionaries, it teaches you how to turn your addictions and your issues and anything in your life
Sickness,
that is causing
weakness,
anything.
Addictions to alcohol, tobacco, to gambling,
but
any suffering, pain, physical, mental.
And Pat it was hard for him because he had a father that was alcoholic. He had a brother that did drugs, and he had a lot of problems in a dysfunctional family. And so he had to learn through the atonement to turn those issues over to the Lord. And it teaches you how, through that manual and that how to do that through the atonement. And once we learned how to do that, guess what? The hardest thing we ever had to do was turn our daughter over to him. He just lent her to us for a season. She is really his child. And so I know that she is in good hands.
Absolutely. She's in the best hands around.
Yeah.
He's got loving relatives and concourses of people that are with her. And we look forward to meeting her when we graduate from this life into the next one, because we know there's the next life. We have felt her influence. I'll tell you one experience I had that's very special to me. We were going to meet after work at dinner, and she would meet me at the restaurant, and I'm driving there. It's my birthday, and then all of a sudden, I just felt this embrace just totally come over me. And I'm wondering, what am I feeling? And then it dawned on me, it was my daughter, Mindy's,
giving you a birthday hug.
Give me a birthday hug. It lasted for like 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh.
And I met her at the restaurant, told her, and she just started weeping. And I said, "Oh, I'm so happy. It felt so good to feel her."
Yeah. She was daddy's girl.
Oh yeah, she's his daddy's girl. We did tons of stuff together.
I appreciate hearing this whole range of your experience, because going from feeling a hug, feeling so close to her that you could feel physically hugged on the one instance, but then also having those moments where you thought, what's the use of being alive? It's only pain. And then, to anger, feeling anger at God. I mean, grief is a whole range, isn't it?
It repeats itself, some of the cycles. Yeah. But like I said early, my anger part of grief, 1 minute. That's the only time I was mad at God. That was it. Well, and that's a funny thing, because people can be.
That's unusual too, though. Do you feel like, is that just in your nature, or was that a choice?
That was a choice that I made in my nature too, because I knew Heavenly Father loves us.
Now, I don't know how long your podcast goes, but I can't let you go until I tell you this one story.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is in the book, and I probably should read it, but I'll just quickly tell it to you. Okay, so this lady has a child, and the son, her only child, and he's died. And so she goes to take him. They said there's a wise man you can take him to, and he'll help you. And so she takes him to the wise man. Please help me. I need my son. And the wise man says, okay, I can help you. I want you to go through the village and ask, and I want you to get a mustard seed. Bring me back a mustard seed. And she's like, oh, I can do that. And he says, but I want you to bring back a mustard seed from someone who has never known grief. And so she goes to the first house and knocks on the door, and a child opens the door that has lost a leg. And she goes to another house, and the people are so poor. And she goes to another house, and there's some sickness. Anyway, she goes through the whole village, and I know I'm leaving a lot of things out, but this has been 3 years ago and I've loved this story ever since. I can't not cry. But she goes, at the end of the day, she goes back to the wise man, and she says, I understand now. I understand. And she takes the son and realizes that, she says, everybody was willing to give her a mustard seed, but there was nobody. And that's the way I felt. I felt like God was picking on me, but he wasn't. Everybody has their trials. Everyone on this planet knows grief. And I didn't feel so alone after that. And so I went back to the bookstore where I got this book, Is There No Other Way? And I wanted to buy another book to take home and give it to somebody, because I love doing that. And there wasn't any book. I couldn't find one. But guess what I found? A little necklace with the mustard seed in it. And so when I'm having a pity party and think that, oh, poor me, and I wear that little mustard seed to remind me that I'm not alone.
I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you shared. Thank you for opening up about these trials that you've had. And you're people who are full of joy. And I appreciate you sharing that, but also these other experiences that you've had. And before we close out, could you answer this question, both of you? What do you think it means to grieve well?
I think it means that you have to look at the eternal perspective of what is going on in your world, that and you have to know there's a God, first of all, and that he's not doing this to punish you. He's doing this because he wants you to grow in some capacity, but you just can't see it right now, but you will. And that's what's called faith. You have to have faith that there's a God that is in the details of your life. And you have faith that your child is okay, your loved one is okay, that nothing's gone wrong here. There is a plan of salvation, a plan of happiness, that if we will just look to him. And that my example is Pat, because he has no pride in thinking, that I don't know.
And getting help to get through it.
Yeah,
we had a good counselor.
Yeah, we had a counselor.
Very good counselor
for about
for 6 months, and it was
Yeah. And what really helped me too is life coaching. I had life coach, and she does grief, but she also does anything. There's all kinds of issues that I can get help from. That has helped me even more and I took that for about 2 years. But anything that will help you to get through the day to day, and reading your scriptures, or reading church books, or reading grieving books, or sometimes I'd even watch movies just to pass the time, because I knew if I could just get through this year, I will feel better. Because time, it doesn't heal all wounds. No. It doesn't do that. But with time, you will have a better perspective of things, and you will be happy again. I can promise people that they will be happy again. Yeah. So how did you want to answer that?
Grieve well. Well, I look upon it as knowing that there's a God that loves me, and he takes care of all his children before we're born, and now, and in the hereafter, in eternity. And that's what helped me grieve so well. Plus, I just look for opportunities to share experiences. And when people have talked to me, confided in me, or somehow I found out that they've lost a spouse or a child, or it seemed like a lot of people show up, but I look to serve other people through the experience that I've had.
Service helps.
And it is very, very healing.
Because you're not focusing on yourself, you're focusing on somebody else.
It's being able to serve and help somebody. Mm-hmm. And I always make sure I smile, pat them on the back, and say, it's all right. They're in a good place.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you again. I appreciate you spending this time with me. It's been a really nice discussion.
Well, thanks for asking us. We really appreciate it too.
Yeah.
We can see, 8 years, it's going along, quite so much better. I feel bad for people that are in their first or second year. I feel bad. And even my mother, who lost my brother, my mother had Alzheimer's, but one time they were talking about somebody that had died, and she reached over to me and she said, Annette, we lost somebody, didn't we? We lost one, didn't we? And oh my gosh, that just cut like a knife. I thought, maybe Alzheimer's can be a blessing at times, because she had actually forgotten.
She lived with that pain.
She had forgotten that she had lost a child. And, before she got Alzheimer's, I said, how often do you think of Sherman, my brother? And she said, oh, and this has been over 50 years ago that he died. And she said, oh, there's probably 2 or 3 days that I haven't thought about him. And oh my gosh, that just floored me. Out of 50 years, you think about him every single day. And now we understand, because we think about Mindy every single day, and we will until we're gone too. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.